What's up, and welcome back to Nowstalgia Pod. Once again, bringing you your weekly look what's going on in pop culture. My name, as always, is Pat Sheehan, and I'm here with my co-host, Dave Martin Swagger. Dave, what's going on, man?
Hey, man, how's it going? What's good?
Nothing. Right in the middle of summer. It's getting hot outside. We're not reviewing Midsummer, although we probably should. Little too scary for us. A little too scary for us. But we got a lot to talk about today. We're going to be talking a couple albums. Stranger Things back once again, there with the crew. And you're going to be giving your review of Last Black Man in San Francisco, which isn't even really out by me. Maybe we'll talk a little bit about that as well. But before we get into anything, hit that subscribe button on YouTube. Go to soundcloud.com/nostalgiapod to find all the ways to listen to this podcast. Share us with your friends. Go to Twitter @nostalgiapod. Let's start with Taylor Swift. She announced that her new album is going to be coming out next month. Lover. Don't like the title name. Haven't been huge fans of the single so far, although definitely pretty catchy. And I think ear grabbing if you listen to them enough. But the real controversy with Taylor Swift right now is she, in that same post where she announced her album title, she also was talking about how her worst nightmare has come to light when Scooter Braun acquired Big Machine Label Group, which owns the rights, the masters to Taylor's first 5 albums. And she has a long history of 6 albums. Oh, I thought it was only her first 5. So Taylor has a bit of a history with Scooter Braun. He's this entertainment executive. He represents a lot of big name artists: Ariana Grande, Justin Bieber, Kanye West, Demi Lovato, and Carly Rae Jepsen, just to name a couple others. But, as Taylor's, we've talked about the controversy between her and Kim Kardashian, her and Kanye West in recent years. She felt very bullied by Scooter Braun and Kanye West throughout all of that. And because of that, she feels like now her bully has her creative life in her hands, or at least her creative past. What do you think about all this, Dave?
Yeah, it's very interesting because this whole talking point about artists, labels, and owning master recordings and all that is being framed through Taylor Swift. And Taylor Swift is probably not the best messenger for this issue, just because she herself carries a lot of baggage as well. Mm-hmm. So I remember when I first saw the news of it, I just immediately bristled because I haven't been a fan of the way Taylor's been carrying herself really since that whole feud with Kim, as you mentioned. So I just didn't really want to hear another pity party, woe is me from Taylor, But right. I think if you dig into it, as a fan of music, as an observer of the music industry, it's hard not to take Taylor Swift's side, even if, as plenty of other people have elaborated on since, it feels like both sides are not telling you exactly how everything has gone down. But I think the overall principle of everything, which is probably a more interesting thing to discuss anyway, sounds like it's firmly on the Taylor side. But this also isn't actually anything that new, to be honest. It's just probably more publicized than usual.
Yeah, I even wonder what the sides are here. That Taylor Swift says that she should be able to own her own music, and Scooter says that I acquired this through the appropriate channels, so I actually do own it now. And I think Taylor's principle and the idea of artists owning their creative work makes a lot of sense and is right. Just the way that the whole industry is set up right now, though, neither one has really done anything wrong. You can go into the weeds and talk about was Scooter Braun and Kanye's actions, and I guess Scooter by association, appropriate. You also wonder, like you said, what role did Taylor Swift actually play in some of this? Because I think she is not blameless in some of the controversy that has come about. Certainly, she seems to be making herself the victim, and I think some of the things like Kanye posting a naked lookalike in the Famous video is certainly something that is a bit out of her hands. But you heard the recording that Kim did illegally between her and Kanye, and she seemed to be on board with what Kanye was putting out there. Again, that was also a doctor video, so we're only getting partial stories. But I do agree that the more interesting idea is like, why aren't artists allowed to own their songs? That these labels, can technically own their work, but the artist is the one who performs them, writes them, kind of makes them.
Yeah, well, the thing is, as we said, just with the whole he said, she said of it all, Scooter's company bought Big Machine, which had been going through a sort of bidding war for some time now. People knew Scott Borchetta was trying to sell it, but he bought it for $300 million, right? And thus he gets all their assets. The chief, most desirable stuff, of course, is Taylor's lucrative 6 past albums, right? And we don't know if Taylor was offered, hey, Taylor, you can give us $300 million and then own the label yourself. Obviously, she had signed with Universal through Republic last year leading up to this new album. So she had already left Big Machine. But the whole he said, she said of whether Taylor was given the choice. I mean, ultimately, the labels have to be altruistic to give you any kind of discount on it. I think apparently they offered her, you can re-up with Big Machine, you can earn back your past albums as you make new ones. And and of course, Taylor's dad is a shareholder, like a board member of Big Machine, or was anyway. So a lot of messy stuff there. But yeah, Taylor signed with Big Machine a 6-album deal when she was 15 years old. And a lot of times when anybody new coming up signs with a major label, the master recordings are owned by the record label. That's just the way it goes, because the record label is usually taking on all of the risk. They're giving money upfront to the artist and hoping it pans out. And I think as Prince said, if you don't own your masters, your master owns you, which is a is a fair point. But the thing about it is, like, Taylor Swift is not exactly dying for cash or anything, right? Now, because she doesn't own her masters, she can't, actually license the music herself into like movies or commercials or video games or anything. And she couldn't put out a greatest hits album from those old albums on her own. But she's still fine. And of course, now she has a new deal where she will be owning her masters moving forward. So I think the bigger question is, it's like, you look at the way things have started to change with newer artists, especially in hip hop. XXXTentacion, leave his personal issues aside, was actually very smart in the way he was handling everything, because he was just signing one-off distribution only deals where he was not getting much of any money up front, but had much higher royalty rates and actually owned the stuff he made. The problem is that's not exactly something you can tell everyone to do, because X already had a built-in fan base. He knew it would work. Right. So if you don't have that and the label is taking a risk on you, it's really hard to convince them to not keep your stuff. So I really don't know what the problem is, but yes, artists should own the art they make, but it's complicated no matter how big or small the artist is.
Yeah. Someone like Chance seems to be the template for this, where he still owns all of his rights to his songs, but it takes a lot more groundwork. Chance, released these mixtapes and they blew up, but for a lot of people to get to that level, it takes a little bit more pushing. It takes more connection, and you need the help from that label to get your music out there. So like you said, this isn't a new issue. Something Prince was dealing with back in the 90s. There's been rights issues probably dating back to, I think it was like the Beatles, and them wanting to have their own their songs and
own some of their songs.
Exactly. So there's it's a complicated issue and not a real clear solution. But I do think, kind of like you said, a lot of younger artists who might want to take a bet on themselves will probably start doing things like X did, or maybe developing contracts where they say, if after this many years I have the chance to buy this back by making some sort of deal where they earn the right back over time. It's going to be really interesting. Just kind of to, I guess look on the celebrity side of this. I mean, this is a pretty high profile feud. Justin Bieber was coming at Taylor Swift in a very passive aggressive Instagram post. Ariana Grande initially posted in support of Scooter and then pulled it back and tweeted in on the side of Taylor Swift. It seems like there's people on both sides of this that are coming at from different angles. Where do you exactly fall with it?
Yeah, and also I think Halsey, Alessia Cara, they both came at it from the men controlling women angle of it all. And while maybe a part of Scooter was like maybe smirking to have a leg up on Taylor Swift business wise, he's buying the label and thus getting her music because it's a smart business move first.
Yeah.
That's what's motivating everything. So I really feel like the gender angle is there's just not a lot of smoke to that if you really dig into it. But yeah, the celebrity stuff's interesting because Scooter Braun really is the only famous music manager, music agent we have right now. That role has largely gone away. Obviously, used to be many more high profile ones in past generations. So he's he has a brand of himself. And actually, the way he does business is kind of interesting too. He doesn't actually directly manage really any of these artists. He just invests in management companies that manage these artists. So it's very interesting. But yeah, I think you just kind of have to just try and parse out the facts. And like we said, it's tough to know. It's tough to believe either side's giving you everything exactly how it went down. But I think you just gotta take away that tell the artists that are much lower profile than any of these people chiming in to do everything you can to own your stuff if you can, because the downside is tough. And you can look at artists like Sky Ferreira, who's still struggling with that. It doesn't always pan out for everyone. So it's complicated, and I'm sure we might hear some more. I doubt it. I doubt it's over. There'll probably be more shots, maybe another Tumblr post. Who knows? And it'll probably come up again when the next artist happens. I know Blueface was in an interview like a few months ago, and they're asking about his deal, and he just like really didn't know. He's like, "I'm signed to Whack 100 and Cash Money West. That's all I know." And then everyone comments, "It's like, oh, 360 deal. You're fucked." It's like, and eventually, I'm sure he'll be mad about the situation. So you got to kind of take it upon yourself to understand exactly what you're signing up for. Stuff.
Speaking of Blueface, when's that album? Do we know?
I'm looking forward to it. No date yet. It's coming.
I get that album out. Meanwhile, we'll be looking forward to Lover coming out next month. Hoping it'll be a bit of a surprise. It'll surprise us with quality. We're gonna move on though to some music. Let's start with Jaden Smith, ERYS.
Jaden now.
Jaden. Yep. Just Jaden. The follow-up to 2017 Sire. And Dave, did you know ERYS is Sire backwards?
Did you know Sire is his middle name?
No, actually I didn't know that.
There you go. Connected.
Wow.
Third eye shit, man. Jaden.
Yeah, and that's kind of the thing is Jaden is known for his weirdness in a lot of ways. I think as a musical artist, he gets respect in the field, and he especially has a somewhat famous relationship with Tyler the Creator, where he said on stage that they were boyfriend, they're going out together, they're partners, however you want to state that. I don't know if that's ever been found to be true.
I think it was a joke.
Probably was. But Tyler then shows up on this album, and so does Kid Cudi. Get a couple other. Yeah, ASAP Rocky, Willow, his sister, obviously. So we get a pretty big mix of people here, and he obviously has a little bit of clout. But is it deserved? And I think that's the question I'm kind of left with after listening to ERYS. What do you think? How do you view Jaden as an artist?
Yeah, that's the thing. So I mean, we talked about Sire when it came out in 2017, and we skipped the Sunset tapes he put out last year, which was a mixtape that I didn't really like much of anything on it. He also did the Sire Electric album, where he did these weird electronic remixes of a bunch of Sire songs. Weird shit, but really nothing to write home about. So this is really the only second time we've really touched on him as a musician. But yeah, I've kind of grown to appreciate his celebrity, his platform, I guess. Not because I'm taking him seriously. No, no one actually is. He's a rich kid. Like we don't
Hmm.
actually care his real thoughts. He's just kind of funny and amusing, I think. And it started out really before the music took off, as we know, with those weird tweets where he's just saying nonsense shit. And I'm sure he'd get along great with Kyrie Irving, but
Oh my God.
and now and Sire had a lot of those like weird out there fake deep bars. I don't know if there was as many of those on ERYS now, but I think ERYS is a step up from Sire. I think it's his best project. It's obviously
Hmm.
far too long, but I think I just appreciate that he's willing to try weird stuff. Like he really switches his flows, he changes his inflections, he does a weird kind of production shit. He's clearly inspired by Kanye and Tyler,
Hmm.
and that certainly means you're taking a lot of swings and you're missing a lot. And I think a
Yeah.
lot of times when Jaden misses, he really misses. But I kind of
Hmm.
respect that he's willing to try different stuff and not just be super boring and lack of personality. So uh, I guess that's a bit of a qualifier. But I think when he does make fun songs, they're pretty cool.
Yeah. ERYS supposedly, or according to him in a Rolling Stone interview, is a concept album about a person named ERYS, a young man named ERYS who lives in dystopian LA, similar to the Warriors, and he takes over the town and has a bad ending. And you know, if nothing else, I agree this is probably his best project yet. I don't know if that means it's a good project, but
Mhm.
I do think there's more on here that you can like and feel optimistic about for his future as an artist. But I give him a lot of credit for sticking to his weirdness and for trying these concepts. And it definitely seems like he has a lot of artistic integrity, that he's not necessarily trying to make something that's just ear catching, that he's like, okay, I have this idea and I want to see it through. I think you can also take swings like this when your dad is Will Smith and your mom is Jada Pinkett Smith,
Mhm.
and your fame is not,
Say it again.
um, yeah, your fame is not tied to your success as an artist, but just the fact that you are their children and you are this public persona who's super weird and out there and people like. Um, but I do think there's more on here to like. I heard him actually. You mentioned X before. I heard him kind of channeling a little bit of that Florida rap metal scene a bit,
Yeah,
um,
Riot.
especially near the end. Yeah, Riot was one, which I actually thought he did pretty well. Um,
Mhm.
there was a song on there. Let me see where I had my notes. Blackout, which I was like, oh, this seems like a pretty blatant uh, XXX Tentacion ripoff right here. Not sure if this is working, but yeah, Riot I thought it came out pretty well near the end. Um, and yeah, that weird production, I thought it actually worked out a couple times, especially when he had someone to anchor him, like Tyler, the creator on Noise. I thought was a standout. I also really liked Trinidad James on Mission.
Yeah.
And I felt
Shout
like,
out TJ, man. Where the hell have
yeah,
you been?
I felt like when he had someone to collab with, he actually brought it a
Mhm.
little bit more.
Sure.
Anything else that stood out to you? Anything worth talking about?
Cool to see him make a song with Willow. I can't really
Mhm.
remember any of his past songs with her. I'm sure they have some. I don't remember them. Um, yeah, I really like Riot as well, just because it's just different than really the whole flow of the album to that point, and just a cool swing. But I actually thought it sounded pretty cool. Like you said, shades of X, shades of Denzel Curry, a little bit. Definitely
Yeah.
that Florida uh, punk rap styling. Honestly, I thought it hit pretty hard right away. I, N, and K, the second, third, and
Hmm.
fourth songs, all sounded pretty cool. And sometimes those flows, they're really simple flows. It's ultimately just kind of loopy trap beats and stuff. But I was bobbing my head to more songs than I expected. So
Hmm.
yeah, actually, I thought the Cuddy song sounded pretty cool. I thought that was actually a pretty solid Cuddy performance.
Yeah.
Um, good hums in there for sure.
He's been turning in some really solid performances. Kids See Ghost last year, we thought he sounded probably the best he has in a long time, and that on this I thought that song also stood out. Where I feel like the album really lost me a lot of time was there was just too much space in these songs. We're going to talk about the Dreamville record in a second, but something I really liked about that record, even though it was an hour long, most of the songs were pretty short, and it really helped this long album feel quicker because I felt like we were going through at a brisk pace. there was some on this where it was like an hour, like it felt like an hour, like a minute 30 of outro, like these like spindly guitars and like just like spacey synths. And I'm like, man, just like get to the next song. I get the point. Just go. So a little more fine tuning.
And then the opposite of that, I think that there's a few songs where I think Got It or On My Own, where it's like these rapid fire bars for 70 seconds.
Right. The pacing was just all off. Couldn't find it. So yeah, optimistic. He's only 20 still, which is kind of crazy. I feel like they've been in the consciousness for like what 6 years now, probably since they were like 13 or 14. I mean, Whip My Hair Back and Forth was what 2015, 2014.
No, dude. That was
even further back?
Was like 2010, 11. I was a freshman.
I can't even fathom that they've been famous.
I think that's around the time when they both kind of got known. Like, remember Karate Kid for Jaden, as well as his Bieber collabs when he's still quite young. And there's a little bit of a downtime. And then, like maybe like 4 or 5 years ago, he started to dip his toe into hip hop and stuff. But I mean, he performed at Coachella. It has Dad come out. He is a legitimate artist, and it does seem like he's taking it seriously. You know, he opened up on tour this past year with, I want to say it was Cole. So he's doing it now, which is cool. And meanwhile, I really liked him at Skate Kitchen last year, one of my favorite movies, 2018. So he does have some cool things going on. So I'm just very curious to see what's next, because it's really tough to pin him down, which is probably the most exciting part of it.
Yeah. Well, we'll definitely stay tuned to Jaden and also Willow if she drops anything. But we're going to talk about Dreamville, like I was teasing before. J. Cole's record label dropping the Revenge of the Dreams 3. Pretty much just a collection of songs. This isn't really an album, I guess I would say, more so a collection.
Compilation album.
Call it. There we go. And it felt that way. You know, I think that there were similarities in some of the beats, some of the structure of the songs, but pretty much it felt like they were trying to showcase different artists, different people. And I feel like there were some winners and losers from this album. Mm-hmm. Why don't we start with what we liked? Because I think that there was more on here that I liked than didn't like. I thought JID stole the show on this album.
Oh, yeah. I mean, just for some context on this, it is a compilation album, but there are a lot of guests on this and aren't Dreamville artists. And, you know, they kind of leaned into that. They hyped this up for some time now. And like, when they tweeted out the track list a few days before it came out, there's this big list of stats. It's like 343 invites, 1 studio, 12 studio setups, 4 cameras, 12 sleepless nights, 142 songs, 34 artists, 27 producers, 9 Dreamville artists. And it's like 250 gigs of music or whatever it was, right? And it's like, they trimmed it down.
Yeah.
And after listening to it and liking lots of it, I'm just very curious, like, what was the point of this? Because there are so many non-Dreamville artists on this. I don't think it was the best showcase for all of Dreamville. I think certain artists definitely seized the moment, like JID or JID, as you said. So Earth Gang as well sounded great on this. But some of the longest running Dreamville artists that also have some of the smaller profiles, like Boss, Kaz, Loot, Omen, kind of just float in and out in this. Don't make that much of an impression. And it's kind of hard for those guys to stand out when they're competing with like Ski Mask or Smoke Pump, you know, this more famous artist popping in. So I was just kind of surprised that it had as many guests as it did, because the past 2 Revenge of the Dreamers projects, that really nothing too special, 2014, 2015, but they were really just all label artists. So I was surprised this was as big as it was.
Right. As you were talking, I would almost feel like if this was a label that wasn't established in some way, I could understand them wanting to bring these features in, because it's like, look at these big names we got. It legitimizes them. But Dreamville's legitimized. Like, you know, there are
part of Interscope too. It's not like an independent thing.
So it didn't feel like they needed that at all. So that's a great point. I agree. I don't know if that was the wisest strategic move to pimp these features. But you did say that there was a lot to like, and JID definitely stood out. I thought he was probably the best part of most of the tracks he was on. How did you feel about J. Cole on this, though?
I actually liked Cole a lot just because it felt like he was just kind of just having fun, just flowing in and out of these songs, popping in,
Mhm.
and knowing how this was recorded, he probably just did exactly that. Just kind of laid a verse after hearing what everyone else was doing. Kind of follows up what he was doing on Middle Child, which is on
Mhm.
his
Yeah.
single from earlier this year, one of my favorite songs of the year, where it's a really listenable, fun Cole song without Cole losing his the austere nature of his brain. You know,
Mm.
he's still the thoughtful Cole, but the songs are a little more accessible.
Yeah.
We got that again, his feature on the London with Thug and Travis as well. And I feel like he gets kind of continue that, you know, songs like Sunset with Young Nudie and really any other features. So I think Cole just kind of didn't set out to do any like woke KOD stuff, which would have just felt out of place when you have
Sure.
this many features on the track list.
Yeah, I agree, and I think that's why I was left feeling a little bit more mixed about his showing on this, because I think what you come to expect from J. Cole and what you get on this album is definitely a little different. And I agree. I think if he had come, super serious or like almost over the top, it would have felt even more out of place. I think he was trying to play more like host, so to speak. So it makes sense that he might be a little bit toned back. What else stood out to you? You mentioned Earth Gang before.
Yeah, Earth Gang, they were established for a while. It's had a lot of music out before they signed the Dreamville. And their Mirrorland album has been coming soon for quite some time. But I think they just got this is a great opportunity for them to just showcase just what makes them so exciting as these guys with these really unique flows and really technical guys that sound really high energy all the time. And I think Down Bad, one of the first singles, kind of reestablished them for any of the mainstream people that aren't paying attention to them. And then my favorite song on the album, Wells Fargo, they're a big part of as well. So
Hmm.
I think just the energy they bring definitely is different than the energy that you get from a Boss or a Kaz, these really workman-like rappers that often have a hard time standing out on songs, especially when they're playing with guests. But I feel like Earth Gang, they just flowed in and out whenever they were there, whether it was one or just one of them or both of them.
For Wells Fargo, all I wrote in my notes is Wells Fargo is some gang shit. Just like a really fun listen. No, I agree. I thought Earth Gang really stood out and made me really excited to kind of dive more into them, which is what an album like this can do. You're showcasing this for artists, and you hear one that stands out, and you want to go check it out. Someone that we were definitely already turned on to is Ari Lennox, who has a couple of tracks on this that she anchors, and I really liked almost every track she was on. Especially the one at the end. Let me just get the name of it. Self Love, which I think also might have been a single, if I'm
Yep.
I might, yeah. But I thought Self Love was really good, and especially because it's kind of a Ari. Actually, no, sorry, I'm thinking about the wrong one. I was going to talk
Got
about.
me.
Yes, got me.
Yep. With
Because that
Dreezy.
one, yeah, because I feel like Dreezy comes in at the end and just absolutely
Mhm.
murders it. Um, but the way that Ari kind of floats in and out on the chorus, and then the verses come about is just so perfect. And she got Ty Dolla $ign crooning with her. It's just
Mm.
such a well constructed, nice song. I was like, man, this is really, really quality. But yeah, Ari Lennox, I thought shined like she did on her album.
Yeah, man. Um, I think a lot of these songs are just really fun. Like Costa Rica, another one, just high energy. And I think some of these songs ultimately are pretty disposable just because even though everyone apparently was in the studio together, a lot of it just feels really constructed together. All right, Ulay verse, Ulay verse, Ulay verse. None of these verses connect or mean anything
Mhm.
combined. They just sound okay next to each other. So we threw them together, So it's tough to have, I think, really high expectations for this. But I think, a lot of the songs sound pretty good. And I think because there's such a variety of artists on this showing out, just exciting stuff. But yeah, I think it's as soon as you hear what Cole's doing on this, I think you kind of have to know that it's just kind of lower stakes for everyone involved. But even with that said, Jid still knows how to bring it. all the time. I think that's just the only way he can make music.
Yeah, no, I agree. He goes 110 miles per hour every time he can. So check those songs out. We're gonna put a couple onto our Nowstalgia Best of 2019 on Spotify. Moving on to 4th of July, 4th of Stranger Things. They're back, man. I mean, Stranger Things, the crew, Mike, Will, 11, Lucas, Max, and Dustin. I mean, the fact that I can like list their names off, I think speaks to the fact that Stranger Things has really moved into the consciousness of just the public of culture in 2019. And, I didn't really feel super excited for this season coming up. We talked a little bit about our expectations and things we were kind of looking for, when we were talking about what was coming up in 2019 for TV. I think jumping back into it, I found that what I really look for when I watch the show is just being with these characters that are fun to be with. And this season, especially because we're only going to talk about the first half, we'll review the second half either next week or the week after. I didn't find myself enjoying being with some of them as much, but I think that's because of the age they're at now. Like someone like Mike, I found myself being like, fuck Mike a lot. Like, such a little prick.
Different
Hopper,
species, Doc.
Hopper, some of his stuff works for me, and some of it is really a bit grating. Still Stan David Harbour, though. He's just always fun to be around. But yeah, they had this flashback. I think it was in episode 3 when Will is really upset, and he's thinking about back to like season 1, these memories they had, and when they showed them and how young they were, I was like, damn, it's crazy that they were that young, and this is where we're at with them. How are you feeling? Just temperature check on Stranger Things season 3 and being back with the gang.
Yeah, I like this season because it definitely feels like a continuation, a true progression of the story of the characters. Part of that is they are older and acting older as well, but also because season 2, which was largely plotted out before season 1 took off and became an unexpected, blockbuster show. Season 2 was just kind of like season 1B. It was a bit of more of the same, and then the one big swing they did, the Lost Sister episode, was quite polarizing and just kind of felt like it was from a different place, different show. But now getting back, I think just the hangs is why I'm there. And even if, Mike, at least in the first half of the season that we're discussing, isn't as likable, I just want to be with these characters and see what they're doing.
Yeah.
And the relationships they have with everyone. And at least the way the season is started, I think they're following up on that because they're taking a lot of things that were cool in season 2 and actually develop them in a smart way. The Barb grief in season 2 felt manufactured because Barb was an unexpected viral meme from season 1. But I think in this season, we have more of Dustin and Joe Keery hanging out. And they're really fun together. So why not do that some more, right? Obviously the relationship stuff is there, but we also have Winona Ryder having a bit of PTSD with Sean Astin, who dies in season 2. And it truly feels like a sequel season, which I like. The upside down framing of it all, I think it's still, just kind of up and down because sometimes it just feels like it gets in the way of what's more fun, which is just the hanging and the relationships and everything. And especially because through 4 episodes, they kind of just repeat what they've done before, specifically what's heat up Billy.
Yeah.
And expel the, what do you call it? The monster from him, which we had seen before. And it just feels like 11 needs to be the Deus Ex Machina of all conflicts. Because she's the only one who obviously can do anything about it. But even if it's familiar, it's such a fun show. And obviously the '80s window dressing is done so thoughtfully and looks so great.
Mm-hmm.
It's just fun for the hangs, you know. And also,
Yeah.
one other thing that happened in season 2 that they leaned into was the Mrs. Wheeler and Billy
Yeah.
sexual tension. Which
What about Bono though?
Bono though, so fucking great.
Yeah, Bono just chef's kiss. She's incredible in this show, in a lot of ways. But I agree that the hangs is what you're here for, and you do a lot of hanging out in malls in this, which feels very appropriate, especially for that time period and what a lot of people were doing. But it also adds this really fun element about like seeing these old stores, even if they're like knockoffs of what the actual stores were. Like Ahoy is obviously supposed to be like a Baskin Robbins type place or something like that. It's really fun to be back with this group. And I actually want to challenge one thing you said, because Billy, yeah, they heat him up, he becomes the villain, but I think they actually are adding a little more gravitas to the Demigorgons, because you see at the end of episode 4 that there's like dozens of people, which adds this element of the Demigorgon being just this like overarching like monster, kind of like CGI whatever, and brings it back a little bit more to like that human aspect, which I think can make it a little bit more interesting potentially for the end of the season. I do think L being the Deus Ex Machina is something that the show doesn't really know how to write around right now, unless you bring in her sisters or the other experiment, or her siblings, whatever they are, the test experiments. But we don't know if they're going to do that. So definitely some things to be looking out for. What characters you've mentioned, like Joe Carey, Steve, and Dustin together? What other characters have you really enjoyed this season so far?
Oh, I've really liked what's her name? Who's hanging out with them? Maya Hawke's character,
Robin.
Yeah, the child of Uma Thurman and Ethan Hawke. By the way,
Yeah.
I think it's her first show role. She's awesome.
Yeah,
and just another smart addition to the ensemble. The same way Max felt so effortless when the way she was added in last season.
Mm-hmm.
So I really liked everything they got going on. Even Dustin's sister, it's not what's
Mike's sister?
No, Kayla McLaughlin, his little sister with the ice cream. Lucas's sister.
Yeah.
She also had a bit of a virality to her in a few small moments in season 2, bringing her in, but actually doesn't feel forced this time around.
Mm-hmm.
I just like the way they've slowly expanded everything. And as you said, the Starcourt Mall is a great setting. So is the pool, for that matter.
Yeah.
I like that I like it's summer. I like that we're not in the school again. We're kind of past the fish out of water stuff with 11, even if she still doesn't know how to speak complete sentences for some reason.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. But I like how Billy is more involved, because he really felt in season 2 like he had a purpose in a previous draft and it was just kind of cut. So he was just kind of really one-dimensional goon figure that was just kind of there. I like that he's at least being used as the host, the bad of sorts. Yeah. So that's smart. And I think Dacre Montgomery is pretty compelling in that as well. And even before that, because he's so shredded, the whole bit with Mrs. Wheeler is just hilarious.
Yeah, and all the moms just in general.
Yeah. Hi, Billy.
Yeah. I also really like what they've done with Will, because if you think about the natural way that things come about as you're a teenager, is there are those friends or those people in the friend group who kind of move forward and start looking to the other aspects of life, and those that stay a little bit more ingrained in their childhood a little bit longer, and that conflict that arises. But then you also bring about the idea that maybe Will is gay or bisexual or something outside of just being a straight white male is pretty interesting, and something that they're obviously thinking about. And the conflict of, he was basically sidelined for 2 seasons.
Yeah.
He got the
He's a tough hang through 2 seasons. Let's be real.
Yeah, he got the Doug in the Hangover treatment, where they're just like, we're just going to put you out of frame and let the other people cook. It's nice to like see them realistically deal with it, where these other kids have kind of moved on and he's kind of like stuck in that like phase he was before he went to a coma for 2 years, basically, or 2 school years. So some really I think some really well done stuff, and I also really like all the relationship stuff. I find it very funny and very like kiddish. Like even like watching them like kiss sometimes, it's very well done. It's like little kid like or like
Yes.
early like teenage kissing. So they really do it very tastefully. And Hopper wanting the door open 3 inches
Yeah.
is a pretty good bit. So definitely some good stuff there. How do you feel about Nancy and Jonathan?
I think they're been the weak links thus far, just because they're not as fun to be around. Um, their relationship is it's okay, I guess. I think most people want her to be with Steve. Um, I think that's probably not happening now. It's fine, but in the meantime, at least they're doing stuff that's like involved in the main plot. But they haven't interacted with really the rest of the cast at all.
Yeah.
It's just those two and Mrs. Wheeler and other people that doesn't interact with the rest of the cast, like the people at the paper and stuff. So want to see where that's going, but yeah, they're just I don't know, because like now they're having relationship trouble again, or they've split, whatever it is, and I don't know. It just feels like we're kind of spinning some wheels again with them,
Hmm.
just because maybe they don't know a more interesting way to integrate them. I don't know. I mean, it makes sense that we have distinct arcs and storylines, and not everyone's hanging out as one big mob, obviously,
Hmm.
but that just lends itself to certain plot points being more compelling than others. I think that's where we're at right now with Nancy and Jonathan.
No, I agree. Definitely very interested to see where the rest of the season goes, and we'll be reviewing that. Any last thoughts on the first half before we move on?
Yeah, I'm just very, very uh, happy to keep watching. I think that this is a strong start. I thought the premiere of season 3 was quite good. Um, and yeah, even though I wasn't like you, I wasn't like super anticipating the return. Once you're back, it's just fun to be back with that show, and I think that
Yeah.
just kind of speaks to uh, the world building, even if it's largely mimicking, the past. It's not like it's
Right.
original creation. It's still fun nonetheless. So very, very pleased thus far.
Yeah, the time frame of the show is so important because you think about if this happened now, like cell phones fix a lot of these issues, these communication issues very
Sure.
quickly. So, um, why don't we talk about The Last Man in San Francisco, or I'll let you talk about it. Uh, this came out of Sundance, is that right?
Yeah, came out Sundance largely out of nowhere, but critical acclaim right away uh, from Joe Talbot, first time feature film director, starring Jimmy Fails, who co-wrote it, who is this is his first film role, and they're friends, childhood friends from San Francisco, making a movie about SF. And yeah, the movie was produced by Plan B, distributed by A24, came out about a month ago. Had a very slow build up and release, never left limited release. I was able to catch it. It never really got to you, and I assume most people aren't even really aware of the movie just because the way A24 usually does it. There's a very small marketing spend. So I think they just kind of wanted just to be a slow burn, let the critical acclaim speak for itself. And it's doing good business as a small movie, but it's probably never was going to be anything more than a small movie. So that's where that is. Obviously, it's disappointing, but it'll be on streaming soon enough for everyone else. And obviously, I didn't know who Joe Talbot was or Jimmy Fails were before this. I think they were pretty well known in the Bay Area filmmaking scene, but this is really the culmination of years of hard work and developing of this movie, which they've worked on for so long. But without spoiling anything, it's kind of a continuation of this recent run of movies about the Bay Area, specifically like gentrification in the Bay Area. We've had Barry Jenkins with
Hmm.
Medicine for Melancholy, as well as Blind Spotting with David Diggs last year. So this is a theme we've seen before, and I have the movie in my top 3 right now for 2019. I really liked it, and I think what makes it stand out is the themes are pretty present about friendship and finding purpose and finding happiness, especially when your home is being changed, and obviously the housing crisis in San Francisco, the Bay Area, is pretty well documented and a pretty shitty situation for people that actually are from that area. But seeing a movie that is actually informed on this, but doesn't forsake, I think, like the characters or the writing to beat you over the head with these themes, uh, was really great. And also, this movie, again, despite being a feature film debut, honestly, the movie is super gorgeous. Like the saturation
Mm.
stands out all the time, and it's framed around Jimmy playing a fictional version of himself and his friend Montgomery, played by Jonathan Majors, who is absolutely fantastic. We'll be seeing a lot of him in the future. Uh, they're these two local guys who have uh, marginally jobs. Like they don't have a lot going on. They share a small space in Montgomery's grandfather's home, so like they're not like super successful or anything, but they're really fixated on Jimmy's childhood home, which is this beautiful Victorian home in the Mission District that now is valued at $4 million, and Jimmy's family had to leave long ago. And the way they weave a story of gentrification into a story about these two friends is done, I think, really smartly, because the friendship and just the warmth that these two guys have together is super believable and feels really earned.
Mm.
And I don't really want to spoil anything about where the movie goes or anything like that, but I think a lot of the stuff that Jonathan Majors does, like his character has a bunch of monologues of sorts, even gives speeches to people in the movie, and yes, he might be communicating the themes pretty broadly via those speeches, but I think the movie is just super moving the whole time. That's okay.
Mhm.
So I really dig this movie, and I hope a lot of people get to see it as it becomes more accessible. So
I
definitely check it out.
mean, everything you said about it so far, I already wanted to see it, but definitely making me excited for it. Tell me about your thoughts on Talbot as a filmmaker. Any interesting choices or his style that stood out to you?
Yeah, I mean, there's a really cool shot where Jimmy and Montgomery are skateboarding down one of the famous hills of San Francisco, but it's a super wide tracking shot on a drone. Like you're really far back. Meanwhile, the score is really beautiful at that time. And he's really good at just communicating the themes he wants,
Mhm.
uh, whether it's just by visuals or through the music or both. And uh, again, like this movie was made for no money, but it looks dynamite, uh, which I think the guy definitely knows his shit. And I don't think he has any new project on the officially announced yet, but whatever he does, he'll probably just stick with Plan B and A24. They obviously helped him out tremendously, but um, clearly a really talented guy. And I think the fact that he uh, worked so hard for so long to get to this point just kind of makes you more invested in his success, because he truly feels like someone who really likes film, but also didn't take any shortcuts because he was making a movie that isn't the easiest sell, you
Mhm.
know? So, uh, yeah, he's definitely a new star for sure.
Yeah, and I feel like people should just make more movies in San Francisco if they can. It's just such a beautiful city and setting. I feel like, especially the hills, really add a
Hmm.
sense of location and place. And
Apparently, it's a city that's actually quite hard to film in terms of just getting the film permits and stuff. Um, but as a local making a movie about his home, you knew he wouldn't give up, and I think obviously I'm sure Plan B helped him with that. But yeah, uh, great stuff, man. Definitely check this out.
yeah, definitely excited for it. And maybe when I get a chance to see it, I'll give my thoughts on it as well. That wraps it up for us this week, though. What do we got for next week?
Yeah, so next week, obviously, we'll finish up Stranger Things. I'm actually
Yeah.
happy we're kind of spreading that out a little bit, both for our own viewing pleasure, but just, let people consume at their own pace, and then checking with us when they do. Ed Sheeran has that collabs album. Not super excited about it, but it's Ed Sheeran, so we should talk about it. Uh, Blood Orange, just Dev Hynes just announced a mixtape for this Friday. That's cool.
Hell yeah.
Big Crit's got a record. Might check that out. Aziz Ansari has his new special on Netflix coming out tomorrow. So you're probably hearing this. It's probably already out on Netflix. I saw him live recently, so I'm sure I've seen a little bit of the material, but I'm very excited for that just because that's an important comeback, and there's a lot of important conversations to have around the framing of that comeback. So we should definitely talk about that. And the Emmy nominations will get announced next week, next Tuesday. So plenty of stuff. Even there's no new movies really for us. I think we're going to skip Stuber, the comedy movie. I know the Farewell with Aquafina is coming out, but that's probably going to start in very limited release. So we'll get to that as it gets to us. But always stuff to talk about.
At Nowstalgia Pod on Twitter, soundcloud.com/nostalgiapod to find all the ways to listen to us. And if you're watching on YouTube, hit that subscribe button. All 5-star ratings and reviews on iTunes are welcome. We love you. We appreciate you. Peace out.